welcome back to the Accommodation Show. I'm super pumped to introduce Theron Lewis. Theron Lewis talks about regulation. He's known as the short-term rental or Airbnb regulations guy. He's been in this space for a while and basically helping accommodation owners, managers navigate through regulations which are changing rapidly throughout the world and throughout the United States. Welcome to the show, Theron.
I am so glad to be here, Bart. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that we finally managed to do this. We connected on the lovely medium of a Clubhouse where you do a lot of speaking to try to help people out. And that's one thing that really struck me is that when I talk to you, you genuinely just want to help out. I haven't felt anything else apart from that in terms of what the work that you do. I'd love you to introduce yourself, tell your story about how you got into this space, and maybe what drives you. Why are you helping everybody out with regulations? It's not the most exciting topic in the world, but it's an important one.
Unfortunately, it is not. Even as someone passionate about regulations, no, it's not. We couldn't fool anybody with that. That can't be our angle. But yeah, I mean, you're correct. It's definitely one of those things that people don't necessarily want to go into as much. It's like, or once they have it ironed out, they feel that they understand it and they know that they can do what they need to do. They're like, okay, I'm done. I don't have to think about regulations anymore. But I found out personally that this is a ongoing thing, and it's very much the most important thing that business owners should focus on with regards to running their business with longevity, because you might be good now, but these things can change, and being involved is so important, being involved in some level. So all this got started because I almost lost my business in Detroit. And by the way, I'm a vacation rental business owner, and that happened first before I got into regulations, and I almost lost my business because of unfair regulations in Detroit, Michigan. And I went from almost losing that business to learning the ropes and how to advocate for the industry in Detroit. And we ended up creating an organization, rallying the community. We got very, very popular, a lot of good support. And we went from almost having short-term rentals banned in Detroit to being at the table with Detroit City Council, so that when ordinances are proposed, we help make the rules. And with that, I basically just learned. I don't know. It was almost like getting. I don't want to equate it to like getting into getting out of the Matrix or something, but it was like a euphoric moment just because I now saw a piece of the industry that I didn't know existed that is so important. I just realized, for the future, for us to have a future as an industry here, we're going to need to do a lot of this, and constantly. It's going to need to be another facet of the industry in every city where there's short-term rentals. So yeah, I it was scary at first, but I think that situation all the time for opening my eyes, because then I could share that with other people as well. And with what you were saying about, why do I just want to help people with it? I mean, this is the thing. I had nobody to turn to when this stuff happened to me, and it was one of the worst, definitely the worst time in my business life, and just one of the worst feelings in general.
And how long ago was this?
So this was in the middle of 2019. So not having any support system there, and not having any YouTube video to look at, no real documentation, there was nothing out there. I just know when that happened to me and we got out of it, I realized that there are so many people that feel the same way when this stuff happens to them. So it's one of those red alert moments. You need somebody to talk to. You need somebody that can give you some answers, and I want to do that and help as many people as possible with that. So people will hit me up, and it's just like, hey, I just need, they're about to ban, they're about to do a ban in my city. I just need some quick answers on just where to start. And it's like, okay, hey, I got some time in my schedule. Let's have 30 minutes. Let's have a quick talk. This will give you perspective, and then you should be able to at least know where to go from there. And that, if I had that, I would have felt so much better, because every single moment was just like, walking on eggshells. Like, you just didn't know what was going to work. You had to constantly move forward with things, thinking that there's a good chance that I'm just going to lose my business anyways. This it's very unlikely to work, but I have to go try it. So if I can give any direction to anybody, I try to do it as much as I can.
Well, okay, so we've got a huge amount that we can unpack and talk about. We can talk
Right.
about sort of what to do to get started in terms of, I guess, fighting regulation or trying to make changes to regulation or have inputs to regulation, which I think is important. I think we can talk about what actually happened in Detroit. But what I'd like to do to start off is really understand where you sit philosophically in terms of regulation, because all of this is happening because it's kind of a new industry. This kind of reared its head out of nowhere, where a mum and dad investor or even a college kid can start to go and do rental arbitrage or co-hosting and then start up this new business and try to make it work. And so, in my personal view, you do need regulation because you need to have sort of some industry standards so that we can all thrive, we can survive, and we've got more opportunity within our businesses and more safety to know that we are compliant, that we are doing the right thing. But then there's also the other side of it where you've got these really harsh restrictions that get put in to try to stop people doing this business model altogether. So where do you kind of sit? And I think this might be nice for the audience to hear, so they don't kind of brand you as, no, he wants this or he wants that. How can you help us understand that?
For sure. So I can tell it to you just like this. And just to start with the Detroit Short-Term Rental Association, and we're nicknamed Sharing Detroit. That's the first organization that I started. And our motto was fair regulation. We want regulation, and we told the city government this from the beginning. It was a, hey, we appreciate you guys bringing these regulation questions up. We appreciate you bringing up a proposed ordinance because regulations have been sorely needed in the industry because it's like the Wild West. It has the potential to be that way with the way things are set up right now. And while those were very unfair, basically if that was put in play, it would have banned almost all of the short-term rentals. What we actually want is we want to have regulation that promotes the people that are serious about the business, that operate professionally, and keeps out the bad actors. Because the bad actors do nothing for anybody. The bad actors do nothing for no one. Let's put it like that. And we are definitely at a time where I do believe that short-term rentals as a whole are positive in most cities, and most of the people are positive. There's just such a vulnerability for bad actors to be in the space. We can all point to a situation where there was a bad actor in our city. It might not have even happened nearby to us, but that's what gets publicized, and it's those individuals that set a bad example for the industry. So we want regulation to keep out those bad actors. The issue right now, which from my experience has been happening worldwide, is that the cities are proposing regulation to take the bad actors out, but they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I don't know if that's a term that you guys use
we've got
Australia,
that.
but
100% got that.
There you go. Okay, all right. Well, see, we're very similar. There's so much similarities. So that is what's happening on a worldwide scale. And from my experience and expertise, it is due to awareness. There's not enough awareness that the powers that be have of the industry, and that's because there's not as much collaboration and as much working together between the community and the governments. And I literally worldwide, that's basically where most cities are.
Yeah.
I'd say that's the big issue here.
Yeah, and I guess, when we first started talking as well, we were talking about whether we call this an Airbnb podcast or a short-term rental podcast. And I think that for me, it's really important for those that don't understand what short-term rentals are, then Airbnb can be this sort of anchor that goes, oh, this is what it is, and kind of what it is. But then
a part of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then the fact of getting everyone together as business owners that run short-term rentals and being able to work together, that kind of never has really existed. And there are organizations out there, but there's a lot of new players coming in, starting up businesses, trying to get up and running, and working collaboratively could be really beneficial to affect policy and make it fair for everybody, so that there can be an industry that sustains itself and everyone kind of has the same playing field as well. Okay, so tell me, you've got the regulations changing in Detroit, you've got your business set up, then something happens and they're changing everything. Tell us about what they were changing and what was most impactful to your business. And what kind of time frame you actually had to act from that moment where you're like, oh God, things are changing.
Right.
I've only got this window. How did that look?
For sure. So first, with the first part of your question, what they were changing, and I might miss a couple of little pieces, but the really impactful pieces were that they were adding a 90-day limit on short-term rentals, meaning no matter what, that didn't matter if you had one property or had a ton of properties, you could only rent out your property 90 days out of the entire year. And I don't think I have to say much with regards to how that is not feasible for almost every short-term rental business, right? Think about trying to have a restaurant and you can only operate it 90 days out of the year, right? So that was the first very impactful ordinance line item that they had. The second one that was really impactful was that if you wanted to rent out your short-term rental, and this is in general, this isn't like if you wanted to just do it for more than 90 days. No, everybody could only do 90 days. And if you wanted to do a short-term rental in general for even 90 days, you could only do it in your own home, meaning your own space. And that does not mean you rent out the whole home. That means you could only have them. For instance, you're staying in one room and then your guests are staying in the other room in your house. Not a second unit. Yeah. None of that. You couldn't rent out a second unit. You could not rent out a separate home, period. The only exception that they had where you could rent out your own personal home that you still had to live in and it still needed to be your primary residence was for, I think it was maybe 2 to 3 days out of the year for certain big events. You could rent it out and you not be there for 2 or 3 days. Okay, and then the rest of the time you only had 90 days and they had to be in your home with you there, roommates.
So the 90 days you had to live with them or be in the same space, even on that 90-day regulation. So basically,
exactly,
they knock out the whole industry. There would just be no way you could run a short-term rental business at that stage.
Exactly. It was, they called it, and I won't even say the main person, and from my experience, it's usually 1 or 2 members of council or whatever the governing body is that's spearheading something like this, because, again, most government officials aren't thinking about these things because it's a new industry. It's just not on their mind. They're thinking about other civic duties, but it's usually 1 or 2 individuals that it just happens to either gets on their desk or they have some motive behind the scenes, and they're making the rule, and everybody else is just like, oh, well, okay, I don't care about that. This has nothing to do with me. I don't even know what a short-term rental is, or Airbnb. Oh, I don't know what that is. They definitely don't know that. So yeah, we'll sign that out. That's good. But it affects everybody, and it affects an industry, not Airbnb. It affects the short-term rental industry. So that is usually how those things go, from my experience, and that is what happened in Detroit. So it really left most hosts with no options. It was going to be a complete ban for the city.
Just to remind me, what was your time period? So you see this stuff, it hits the media or whatever, or maybe even not, and you go, okay. What was the time frame there from you knowing about it to...
This is the best part. I remember this like it was yesterday. I still remember what the news headline looked like. It's like a photographic memory just for that. And we had 2 weeks until they were voting to put it into law. 2 weeks. And they had already, I would say, sneakily been voting on it within their separate committees. So it had gone down the proper process without anybody really being aware of it. Because, again, we had no community. It was just everybody's doing their own thing. Nobody's really thinking about this stuff. So it's getting past to the point where now it just needs one more set of votes and you got 2 weeks. And it's like, oh, that is what most cities, that's what their fate is when these things come up, because there's no real established organization that's keeping track of these things. So that's when it made the news, when there was 2 weeks left, and I was, very, very alarmed, to say the least. Let's put it like that,
Okay, so I feel like this story could be a pretty hefty one to get us from this particular moment in your life where you're going, oh gosh, it's all over, Red Rover, I'm in a lot of trouble, to getting yourself organized, making the right contacts, and kind of even probably at that stage figuring out what a fair set of rules actually are,
right.
and kind of coming up with that, because I imagine at that stage you wouldn't even know what a fair set of rules actually is and what you're trying to, like you said, avoid all the bad actors, have some regulation that works for everybody.
Yep.
So tell me, you're at this moment, you obviously start to mobilize. If you were to break it down into steps in terms of, hey, you're at this moment, which I think a lot of places are right now, tell me the steps as overall what you would do to get to a positive result, maybe without going in the specifics of each level of it, because I think that's where we can follow up in the future and go, all right, so we've got to step number one. All right, what do we need? Step number two, and then we can keep coming back to Theron and going, hey, what do we do now?
You're absolutely correct, and this is a really good way for people to think about it. The way to fight this, and not, I don't even like to use the word fight, even though when push comes to shove, you need to stand up for your industry, your businesses, and things of that nature. But to advocate for the industry, it's like it's asking, hey, how do I advocate for the short-term rental industry? Is just like asking, hey, how do I start a vacation rental business? There's certain things, but if you get into all the details, right, there's a million things that you can stretch out and that you'll have to do, right? So you're absolutely right. So I explain it like this, and I didn't say this before, but after all of that happened, I started helping others, and I started professionally helping organizations and really, applying the strategy that I use in Detroit in other markets, and to see if this is only in Detroit or if this would work everywhere. And it has worked in every market that I have tried it in. And markets have different things. Some markets don't need they're not facing a full-on ban. They're facing different things. But it's about how to advocate and make that connection and actually open that line and make change in your city. So that is what I have learned and what I've formulated as a strategy, and I'm happy to say that it's worked very well. And what I use in that strategy, to answer your question, is I call it the 3 pillars. One, you have to have a association, and you have to have a professional association. So all that means is you need to have like an established name for your group, which I know this is not something that is for instance, in New South Wales, they have an established group and everything like that. But you need an established group, just with an established name, that you can professionally say to a government official, hey, I represent the Detroit Short-Term Rental Association. And you need to have a community that is generally active. That doesn't mean you need thousands of people talking or anything like that, but you need, if something happens or you need to inform the community, you need to have that group, and you need to have enough of the community there, like accessible to inform them. Hey, the city council is going to be voting on this thing. You guys should come to this council meeting, or hey, you guys should write a letter to your local person. You need to have some central hub. That's the first pillar. The second pillar is you need to have some sort of I call it more of a one-on-one formal connection between your organization and the decision makers. So that means having a political consultant, a lobbyist that can get you in the room, not as the whole group, but hey, this person in this area or district, let's bring someone who's a success story in the short-term rental space to that policymaker. And let's have a small session with them so they see an example of, this person in the community that I am working for is raising their family due to their vacation rental business. It's helping them provide for others in their community. It's helping in a lot of cases people have companies that will rehab and develop spaces for long-term renters. But some of their portfolio they use as short-term rentals so that they can fund these other projects and provide housing for people. That's actually very common. And when you have that, then it's a very, very personal connection. And the way I see it is, this is what causes policymakers to listen. Because yes, you can have the mob, or maybe we shouldn't call them that, of course, they're our community, but they might see them that way, where it's just a ton of people sending in letters or talking about issues at these council meetings. But when you have a one-on-one with somebody who's very targeted, that that policymaker cares about, that's a different sort of communication. So having both of those is super important. And then the last pillar that I think I'd say every market, every mid to high population market should have some connection with a popular platform in the area, whether that be Expedia, VRBO, Airbnb, have some sort of connection with the policy team for one of those companies, because what they're going to do, you guys to an extent have shared interests. You have a shared goal, right? It will divert. It will not be the same, and you can't rely on them to fight your fight for you. But they are a very good ally for you, and they will give you information on, hey, this is what we're doing with our lobbyists. Here's some information that we found out about these policymakers. These are we had a really good conversation with these policymakers. You should talk to them too. Here's the inside scoop about what this policymaker, why they don't like short-term rentals or why they do like short-term rentals. That was very crucial for us in Detroit. And then also, they will actually help you build your community while still staying at arm's reach away. What that means is, if you are trying to build your community and you need to get people on an email list so that you can email blast people whenever there's a hearing or whenever there's an emergency or information that you need, they will actually help promote your organization through their channels, because they have their own email list of hosts, homeowners, even guests. A lot of concerned guests want to support and keep short-term rentals operating in certain areas. So they will actually promote your organization and help you build it. So that was something that was very helpful for us too. Just for an example, Airbnb, which was our platform that we linked with, and every area can be different. Some people, some cities have VRBO as a very popular platform. You don't need to just pick whichever one works. But what they did is they actually blasted our events and they blasted our email list, our sign-up list, to all of the hosts in that city. So that allowed us to get more people into our organization. Those three things I'd call them the three pillars. If you get those right, you can really, I'd say you are very well, what's the word? You are in a very good position to get proper regulations and not have something bad happen.
I want to be conscious of time, because I want to get in as much as possible for those that are interested in this topic, but also make sure that we leave as many high-value points on the table. And as with most of my podcasts, I like to leave it a bit open so we can continue conversation rather than go, hey, this is absolutely everything, and try to ram it all in. Because I think we've already shared an awful lot with everybody. And
Yeah, did I share too much?
No,
I'll keep it simple, but
no. It's
Yeah.
good because I think at least people now have gone, all right, I've got these 3 pillars. The one thing that really strikes me is that there's different bits that have already been done in terms of some of those pillars that you've talked about. Some bits haven't probably been done. Some have been done better and worse. The one thing that I'm wondering about is difference in opinion, and also, what a fair policy is and that sort of thing. So you need a leader who's going to say, hey, this is how I think it should be done, and then everyone kind of follows in that footstep. Or the organization says, hey, this is how it should be done. How do we figure that part out? How do we de-escalate internal potential conflicts of interest as well, to make sure that everyone starts to get that right rhythm, to make those changes so that there's more volume or more mass, and that people believe in the leader as well of the organization. Say, yeah, cool, Theron's told me to do this, but it might not even be you or whoever it is who's leading this. How do you do that particular part?
For sure. And to make sure I understand your question, you're saying, how do you come to a great proposed set of rules that everybody or most people in the community agree with?
Yeah.
Perfect. So this is how we did it in Detroit. We worked with everybody. Basically, the way that we set things up was where we wanted to make sure that we included all sectors of the industry in this ordinance. That means individuals that are operating, a high amount of units to a certain extent, and especially we want to make sure that the people that have 1 property or 2 properties are represented. And we didn't want things to lean too much one way or too much another way. But I will put it like this. We got input from individuals that we felt represented those different categories, and we also kept in mind what the government is really angled towards. Meaning, what do they care about? And for us in Detroit, we felt that the government cared about the regular Detroiters, the citizens that live in the city, that have a small to medium sized business, but the true community. I don't want to say true community, but the people that are in the community, like the neighborhoods that are actually in the local community. Protecting their interests was the most important. So that meant protecting the interests of people with 1 to 2 units and they live in the city, but also keeping in mind operators that might have 10 or 20 units, but they're not, oversaturating the market. They're not taking over a neighborhood. They're not doing things that in Detroit they would deem as, maybe even predatory or just not good for the neighborhood. So it's really getting all of those together. So getting pieces of what each part of the industry wants, and then really, and almost think of it like a cake. Like you have the different layers of the cake, and this is like what every part of the industry wants, but then also putting the icing over it where it's, okay, this is what the government mostly cares about, because that has to be part of the equation, and then that's what gets you something that is as palatable as possible for everybody. And I'll say this, when we were proposing changes in our own desired ordinance, before the ban just got completely pulled, what we had come together with was something where it did restrict operators that had around, it was like 10 or more units, and this is specific to Detroit. I think it was between 10 to 15 units. There was something where you basically would there would be limits on how many operators could operate that many units, but then also the people that had that many units plus would be grandfathered in, because as long as they're showing that they're not affecting neighborhoods in a bad way, they're not bad actors, they don't deserve to lose their businesses. And then also moving forward, without any sort of licensing or things of that nature, you could we really wanted licensing in general for everybody, but without as many hoops to jump through, you could have 1 property You can maybe have 2 properties, one of them being your primary residence. But then moving forward, you want licensing. We obviously wanted extra taxes because we feel that if it's taxed more, that means that the government, to an extent, will care more about it and want to protect you. And there wasn't as many taxes that were coming out of short-term rentals in Detroit specifically. But that was the solution that we were basically working with. And I don't want to get too deep into that because there's some other things that, we looked at. And that's really where being at the table is the most important part. Because if you're at the table, like now, we have the ability to do that and be at the same level and, create something great when the time arises. But that was what we had put together, and we were working with that to try and get something solidified there if they wanted to put an ordinance through. But what ended up happening was, they were so impressed with, the citizens in their community, and we raised the awareness so well. They, most of the council voted against any type of ordinance or that ordinance. To begin with. So now we get to be back at the drawing board without any pushback, any pressure. There's no pressure to make some sort of ordinance that would be unfair. We get to really sit down and take our time and collaborate. And, that's obviously a very, very good place for us to be in. But that is the process that we had with regards to getting something that would work for everybody. And I think it just really bring it more back to you all's situation. It's really about working with the people that represent all of the sides in the short-term rental industry there. So just really getting the people who represent that and getting them to put their big points on paper and putting something together that way. And then again, icing it over with what the government really cares about. That is what we believe is the best way to go about it.
We've got a few things to do, a few things to work on, Theron. That's amazing. And look, I think that the awesome thing about today's session is it's about sharing that anything is possible and that you can make change, you can affect change. By getting the right network and the right people together. I think that what I'm getting from this is that if people are connecting with this particular topic, and if they do want to talk more, it is about finding your local STRA community. If there isn't one, create one, start getting people together, set up a Facebook group and start talking and getting people involved. And then you can start to affect change or find one that's already there, join it, talk to the people that are heading it up, find out what's needed, and be one of those people that can write those letters and share that community with others. And then also, this is also, I guess, an open offer that anyone is leading up one of those organizations, and they can reach out to you, right, and have a chat
Right, absolutely. And here's the thing. I want to hear from everybody, whether you are an organization or looking to start an organization and you have, let's just say, bigger aspirations, like you want to, get an impactful organization going in a larger or mid-sized city, or if you are just a short-term rental host that just needs to figure out, hey, well, I need to know more about this regulation stuff. I don't really know where to start. What should I do? Like, please do not hesitate to contact me. I want to help everybody. And what I always say, Bart, you said it really well. Even if you're just starting in the industry, even though I do recommend, hey, see if this is the industry for you, and get at least one property under your belt, and really work your business. But even if you're starting off and you're just at the the beginning of your journey or close to it, you've just gone along to some extent, you can really make an impact by just creating a Facebook page with your city and then Short-Term Rental Association. And the reason why that's so impactful is because it's not the fact that you're going to be making a huge impact right at the moment, but it's the fact that you have something set up And that's, I'd say bare minimum, that is useful. That allows you to have a professional organization. You can grow that. You can get people to join and like your page. And that, even if you didn't have a website, stands as at least a form of a website for your organization. But just doing that alone is a really good start. And then you can grow things from there. Because if you're not facing a ban or facing bad regulation like right now, the best part about that is you have time. You can take this slow instead of being like me, where we had 2 weeks and we had to, and even going back to that, we'll definitely have to have another podcast, right? But, we had to do so much rallying just so that we could get that deadline pushed by a month and then continue the process. And then we were able to get it pushed just a little bit more. And then we were able to get things going. Like, that is a horrible situation to be in. You don't want to be in that situation. Yeah. So it's much better to just be able to take it slow, start an association, ask people to join, and you can make a big impact right there. And that can be a really good sphere of influence for you if you really want to make an impact in your industry, because you're doing something like what we just talked about in the beginning, Bart, that a lot of people just don't want to. It's not appealing to them, and it's understandable. Regulations, they're never that fun, right? Nobody likes reading legalese, okay? So if you take the mantle on that, while there's nothing bad happening, you can really establish yourself and do good for your community, and it'll come back to you.
Look, Theron, I'm going to wrap it up there. You're a beautiful man for joining us, for sharing your knowledge, your skills, your experience with everybody. You mentioned that people could reach out to you. What's the best way to find you?
For sure. So we're in the middle of branding our organization that's helping people worldwide. We're already doing it, but our name's not the best. It's just a LLC to keep things on the up and up. But I always like to have people refer to the first organization that I built. It's called Sharing Detroit. So you can reach out to me at Theron. That's THERON at Sharing Detroit. DETROIT.org.
Gotcha. And don't forget it's a .org, not a .com.
Correct. It's funny. I think we did get both of the domains. So if you did mess up, I'll probably still get it. But go for .org. Okay, that's the official one.
Theron likes 2 times the email each time he opens his inbox.
Oh gosh, I should take that back. That hasn't happened yet, so maybe I should just direct people to the org. Don't want that to start. Oh man,
beauty. Look, thank you so much. I hope if you have been listening, I hope this has been of value to you. I want everybody to know that we approach this with love and empathy, and we want to make sure that we can give value where we can. It's a super complicated topic, but get together, get talking, get working together. Find those organizations that are out there, find out what they're doing, find out the leaders in there, ask what you can do to contribute and to help. Get yourself a bit more informed. It doesn't take a lot of work. You can literally, off the back of this, just jump onto Facebook, look for some groups, type it into Google, do a little bit of research, contact Theron, and then from there you can start to impact change and just protect your business and also, like we said, try to make sure that there is that you can be really proud of the industry that you're in by suppressing all those bad actors. Theron, thank you so much for joining us once again. Is there anything else the community? Why would I do that? Theron, thank you so much for joining us once again. Is there anything the community can do for you?
You know what? Here's the thing. If you take stock in your own business, in your community by searching, doing what Bart said, searching for the association in your area, and if it's not there, just creating a Facebook page, I'd say that is a big step already, because what I want is for the industry to really come together with this sort of stuff, and the more representation we have in every city, the better. I'd say that's the best thing. If you have an association, I urge everybody to just at least sign up, send an email, even just ask, how can I help? Because you'd be surprised what little you could possibly do that could be a big impact. And again, that can come back to you as well. Being involved in the community, in these associations, it really should be it's not that you have to spend a ton of time. It's just that if you just either do something, donate to that association, or at the very least put your name on their list so you get notified about things, that is you being responsible for your business, because these types of associations are necessary everywhere for our industry to stay healthy. That's really what it's all about.
Great words. Thank you so much, my friends. Really appreciate it. We'll catch each other around, and this topic's not going anywhere, so I'm sure we'll be talking over the next few years, my friend.
It's like, unfortunately, but kind of fortunately too, because we can do a lot of good here. We're in a good place. We're not in a bad place yet, as long as we start now.
Beautiful. Look, have a good rest of the week, and we'll speak again soon.
For sure, Bart. So good, so glad to be on.
Thank you.
You have a great one. And thanks to everybody in the audience, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you.